Mark Zuckerberg announced some big changes at Facebook, including Facebook Shopping or Shops and Instagram Shops. In this video, I'm going to be discussing with Cecilia Mecca, best-selling author of historical romance, how all of these changes at Facebook, plus Messenger and Messenger bots, novel bots, ManyChat, and a whole bunch of other technical jargon, and how it may impact authors. If your head is already spinning with all of these buzzwords, don't worry. By the end of this video, you're going to understand if any of this technology is relevant to you and how it might help you sell more books. Hey, it's Joe Solari here, and welcome to the Business of Writing. Today, our special guest is Cecilia Mecca. How you doing, Cecilia?
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Good, good. So the reason I reached out to you was I know you're doing a lot of work around messenger bots, and I tagged you when I saw what Facebook announced because I knew you would get it.
Yep.
And I'm pretty excited about it. So I thought maybe we'd start out, hearing about you and your background, and then we'll go right into talking about these Facebook announcements and how we think they're going to impact authors.
Sure. Yeah. So and thanks for having me on. This is super fun. And I like talking to human beings these days. Right?
We just talked for like 3 hours before this.
I just talked to zero. I'm like, it's a human. So I've been publishing 3 years now. I taught English for 15 years and was a curriculum consultant for 5. So after 20 years of teaching, I kind of followed I've always wanted to write medieval historical fiction. Romance. And so I kind of picked a book back up that I had started 20 years earlier, finished it. And at a conference, I ran into an indie author because I, knew the trad route. I didn't know anything else. And she said, why are you going to traditionally publish a medieval romance? Like no one picks those up. And I didn't even know what she meant. And so I figured it out and really just went indie right from the start. And within 6 months, 2.5 books published in 2017. I left my day job and replaced my income. So I was able to, and that was never the dream. This was a side gig, was really excited to just have a romance book published. But it's not the way it went. And I left my job. And so I've been doing this full time since the end of 2017. Have just over 20 books out, mostly historical romance, a few Scottish time travel, dipped my toes into paranormal, and jumping into contemporary romance this summer with a pen name. So just wanting to always diversify a bit and living the dream. It's amazing. I loved teaching. I really did. And I miss my students and my colleagues, but this is like a dream job. So I'm very, very fortunate.
Yeah. And it's you prolific writer too. You put a few books out in that period of time.
Yeah, I have, but they are short. So I started with kind of the average 80,000 word, which is, in my subgenre, and kind of started coming shorter and shorter when I saw that the readers tolerated shorter books, knowing that I'd be able to put out more releases. So I've gone down to, in my current series is 50,000 words just to test it, to see how that would do versus, kind of 65, 70, which is where I had landed. And they're 4 books later, no one has said any word about the length. So I feel like this is kind of my sweet spot now. So that's a little bit, deceptive. I have friends that write 100,000 word plus. So I'm like, you're putting out, I'm putting out 6 books, but really we're writing the same number of words.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And there's trade-offs because I'm in KU. So when you look at releasing more often versus a shorter book and less KU reads, it's all testing because there isn't one definitive. As with everything in this business, there's not one definitive do it this way. So
yeah. I know there's a lot of folks that are playing around with that, whether it's shorter books or launching longer books, and but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about Mark Zuckerberg's big announcement.
Yay!
And that's Facebook Shops and how that may impact the author community, and how it ties into some cool stuff that you've been doing with messenger bots.
Yep.
So when you've heard about this Facebook Shops announcement, what went through your mind?
Well, it's funny because the day it was announced, I had no less than like 5 people message me and say, what does this mean? Like, it's funny that you would ask because, being in KU, I think I'm a little bit more limited in terms of how this is going to work for me. But it also made sense because I've kind of really been big with chatbots and the Facebook Messenger. I think they realized, and I realized right away, this is just one more move to having what I do and love now, which is the messenger bots, really kind of explode. And I know it's been positioned to explode, but with this, I thought, wow, Facebook shops, messenger bots, like it's a marriage made in heaven. And I know you've had the ability on Facebook to purchase, but this is really a whole new thing, because now that they've integrated with Instagram and they've purchased WhatsApp, and in the next probably 2 years, all of that will be integrated together. The ability to one click purchase books on Facebook Messenger, Instagram stories, Facebook stories, which are, you cannot discount Facebook stories because they push them. So I think Facebook pushes, I'm interested in, and WhatsApp, I think it's going to be big. And so my first thought was, how do I make this work as a KU author? But so there are a lot of questions still.
Yeah. Well, and I also, so in my experience with it, because I also work with a business that does physical product sales. It's a home brewing supply business. We've kind of been on the cutting edge of what they've been releasing. So like we had Instagram buy buttons. We've had our catalog integrated on the site. Now there's some downside to it. Like we're constantly struggling because, we'll say beer yeast, and they'll kick those products out of our catalog just because of the word beer, right? And there's no way to easily get that fixed. But when you look at the power of what Facebook has for selling, in that when you get the full-blown power of their advertising platform, where you can feed it back information through your sales cycle, and they start to get that feedback loop going and finding customers for you with all their data, you just start to see the transaction cost to get a customer shrink down.
Yes.
It's been crazy, right? So when I saw that, and I saw the other part of it that I thought was really interesting is, and it's way down in the fine print, is they're talking about them taking the next step and starting to process payments.
I saw that.
Yeah. So that's the other part. Like right now, the transaction you would have to handle that yourself. But if they start to act as the merchant of record, that opens up, or should say closes a big can of worms for a lot of authors with the whole sales tax piece.
Yep.
So yeah,
I was jealous of white authors as soon as it was announced. I'm like, do I want to take a series wide just to test this? We'll see.
So we'll get into messenger bots, but just kind of when you're using that with you or some of the clients you've worked with, have any of them used it to actually sell books?
You're talking about the messenger bots?
Yes.
Yes, that is the goal. I mean, as authors, we have such small margins. There's not a ton we need to be writing, too, and in terms of our whole day. There's not a ton of time, at least for myself and my clients, the clients for NovelBots clients, to have one more cool thing that is engaging to readers and is interesting to readers. At the end of the day, if it doesn't convert to sales, like I probably don't have time for it, unless I'm using it as a lead generation, which messenger bots also could be. But yeah, absolutely, it sells books, and we've seen it do that. And that's the only reason where I'm really kind of bought in, because my time, as yours is limited. And there's a lot of really cool things we could be doing. I'm testing TikTok on a pen name just because it's contemporary's younger, and things that probably won't convert, but you always want to test. But this is one that I've stuck with now for a little over a year, because it does sell books in the end. Not immediately, you can't sell them first time you pull a subscriber in, but I see, and we'll get kind of deeper into it, but the open and click rate. So for instance, on a kind of an 8 conversation, I call them flows or conversations that you might have, and we use them as a character. So the character is actually talking, not you in the messenger. After about 6 to 8 flows, I'd say the open rate, and that last flow is a purchase flow, we'll call it, where they're buying. The open rate on average probably only drops 2 or 3% from even the content ones where you're giving them something or exclusive chapter or something like that. And I just looked before I jumped on here. My last release, my first flow open rate was like a 99 range, somewhere right around there. And then the very last flow, 7 later, we're looking at 96 point something %. So you're not losing that many. And then couple that with the high open rates, it's really impressive.
Yeah. So why don't we, for those that might not be familiar with messenger bots, and you and I we were talking earlier how we've been kind of early adopters to the point of aggravating ourselves. Share with folks, like, what is a messenger bot and how they're used and kind of the basics.
Yeah, so most people at this point know Facebook Messenger because Facebook did a good job of pushing it out to us, and we communicate with people on Facebook Messenger. It's its own app now, all of that. It's usually one of the top 3 apps worldwide. So it's got a lot of users. And when we look at using Facebook Messenger in terms of the book sales, one of the way we position it, because some of the best bots out there, so the bot is just you're conversing in Facebook Messenger using a third-party platform. So you can do it through Facebook, but a lot of us who use it for marketing will do something like Chat, Mobile Monkey, or ManyChat, which is what I use. So you use a third-party software and integrate it and make it automated. So the bot is talking to your readers and not necessarily you. You can jump in anytime you want, but I'm not sitting there going back and forth as my character. A third-party kind of platform is doing that, and that's where we kind of have that bot idea jump in. Some of the best bots out there, most of the best bots out there have, the thing they have in common is a strong, unique voice. And that's where I jumped in about a year ago. And a year ago was years after the bots got started, and really early adopter. I would have jumped on this 3 years ago when I first saw it. And I did test it then, but I was like, I just don't think it's complicated. It's not for me. I wish I stuck with it then, but better late than never. But having a unique voice, you know, as I looked at really good bots, I thought this is so easy and obvious for us because we've got that nailed. That's our characters. They already have a unique voice, and it's a way for readers to get to know that character on a deeper level. So that's when I really kind of got excited and said, all right, so let's see if my character talks to the subscriber, you know, how that works. Because Pizza Hut or all of these really good bots, they have kind of a character and a unique voice. And so we just kind of parlay that into, I already know how to jump into my character's head. So let me kind of chat with subscribers or new subscribers through the bot, through ManyChat, through Facebook Messenger. And so that's what it is. And I'll use the example of Ian because he's my current character. It changes as the books come out, but Ian is the Scottish time traveler that, you know, I'm promoting right now. And so Ian will come in and it will be as if he's talking. I change the avatar so it looks like Ian, and then he'll, you know, kind of go back and forth with readers in an automated way. And they get to know him, and before the book even comes out, and it's highly engaging for them, but most importantly for me, at the end of, you know, those 6 weeks or however many flows, they're buying the book. It's crazy. And when I compare to my last release, the open rates for the bot versus my newsletter, I mean, you can't compare it. There's benefits to the newsletter. It's completely yours, whereas the messenger isn't. But there's ways around that because Facebook Messenger also allows you to collect emails and collect text messages. So if you use it the right way, kind of the omni-channel marketing theory, then it does all of it. So,
Well, and to your point on the omni-channel thing, I know with ManyChat, they're bringing in other integrations like SMS messaging. They're they already or have had the ability to connect up to things like MailChimp and ActiveCampaign and that. So there's the ability to start trickling across folks to make sure that you have them on some kind of list that you own.
Exactly.
And, you know, there's been so many changes with Messenger and the rules that they've had around it that I think that's also part of ManyChat's kind of strategy is, okay, if this Facebook changes something tomorrow, we can always really push heavy into SMS, which, let's face it, is not a terrible thing.
No, especially if you look at SMS, and I've been looking, because of that push by ManyChat, I've been looking more and more into that, and I'm excited about that now too, because I tested that with my last 2 releases. Those open rates are fantastic, and there's a lot of research, especially in a younger demographic. They're kind of expecting that and looking for that medium in terms of if it's good content. You know, I'm signed up for some text messages for some brands, so the barrier there was it's always been pretty expensive. It's its own kind of expense.
Yeah.
I the service once, like $30 a month plus messages. ManyChat, when you collect text messages or SMS numbers in ManyChat and serve them back out through ManyChat, it's, 1 cent per message. So, and you can even, if you had subscribers and you didn't even want to pay that, you could pay a certain segment. You can just take your people that didn't see it in the chat and send it to them or something like that. But even so, I don't think it's an expensive medium, especially for how high the open and click rates are. And now they just announced the ability to send multimedia as well, which we didn't have a few weeks ago. So you can send for 2 cents a message, you can send an image, so your book cover, and then, the text, which is great because for us, having the ability to do that on a launch day, the book cover plus the message that brings them back in, it's pretty cool.
That's interesting. So you're actually using it pre-launch to kind of seed the audience to the new characters?
Yeah, I'm using it a bunch. I'm actually, to be honest, testing it now so I'm trying different things because the SMS part is fairly new to me at least, or to us. In the last few months, we've been kind of testing it around, testing it for that, testing it for, you mentioned those rules. So on March 4th, Facebook updated their messenger policies. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to message anyone anytime you want. You actually can't. There's rules now. So pulling people back into the messenger using the SMS, that's one way we're testing it, because if you put out a link, let's say on a Facebook post, or if you send a text message, or if you send a newsletter with a link that pulls someone into your bot, then you have the ability to message them, no holds barred. But after 24 hours, once they've clicked that link or that SMS or something else, now there's rules. You cannot just message outside of that 24-hour window, that first initial kind of contact window, anytime you want. There's kind of rules that go along with that. There's 4 tags. You either have to use one of those tags or you have to pay to do it, which you have the ability in ManyChat to do that. But, I try to use this organically. I don't need to pay Facebook anymore than I'm already paying them with the ads. So the only thing I really do pay for is ManyChat as a platform and the SMS messages now. So if you want to do it organically, you need to use a tag. We do use one of those tags, the event reminder tag. It's getting into the weeds a little bit, but there's other ways to do it. But we have to remember it is Facebook's platform. So they changed March 4th and made it more complicated for us, and we have to navigate these rules. They very well can do that again in another 2 months. So that's why I do think collecting email and SMS is really key, because it is their platform and they can make the rules, change them anytime they want.
Right. And when that gets to kind of that big announcement that we were talking about of this Facebook Shops is there's certainly rule changes coming, right? Like if I was Mark Zuckerberg and I had the assets that he had, I would want to make sure that I was using them all to my benefit, right? That I'm going to use my messaging platforms to assist customers that are buying on my platform from people that are paying me to use my shops. And that I'm getting a transaction every time that passes through. And let's not forget, what was the name of they were going to make their own currency?
Libra. Yeah.
Right. Like that didn't work out so well, but do you really want to make?
If I'm a Libra, I'm like, I'm in.
They had you on the name.
I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah. But really what they're thinking about is how can they get at the core level of the transactions. And, when you think about if sales move over onto that platform and they're able to pick up 2.9% plus, 30 cents each transaction like PayPal does, that's billions and billions of dollars. And we start to really see something that could be a true competitor to Amazon for book sales.
Yeah. I mean, there's been articles already this last week that people see that on the horizon. So whether it happens or not, it remains to be seen, but it would almost potentially change some of our strategies, especially if you were positioned, say, in Facebook Messenger and you had a strong subscriber list and you knew how to use it already. And then now Facebook Messenger, integrates fully with Instagram and WhatsApp, which they will. That could change a strategy. I would definitely, be looking at testing it in some way, even as a KU author, maybe taking a series and testing it out wide or something like that. So it could be huge.
Oh yeah. Well, and when you're doing sales, you're actually directing the reader to Amazon, correct?
Right now, as of right now. So like I have, as you do, like Facebook shops, like their old iteration of shops, and I direct them to Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking about completely keeping it on their platform, not directing to Amazon and selling the book, if that's how it pans out, I'm selling the book right in Facebook shop, I'm paying for it, I get the book. Now you're distributing it outside of the Amazon ecosystem. Yeah. And in that case, you couldn't do that in KU.
Right. And I know from what we've done with some authors that are in KU, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, before your book goes into KU, you can sell it wherever you want.
Yep.
Right? So what we've done with Messenger Bots is we've done pre-orders.
Yep.
And then how we facilitate that process, it's a little clunky, but what we were doing was you would send somebody, once they were ready to buy, to PayPal. Mm-hmm. And when they did the PayPal transaction, that would trigger BookFunnel to deliver the book.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, when they announced that, all these things went through my head, going wide, testing. I've never done that. I know some authors do that for lots of reasons, where they'll even launch out wide and then pull it into KU, or like you said, doing pre-orders and then putting it in. All of those things would be fair game because it'd be something to test. And there's trade-offs. You're selling pre-orders outside of the ecosystem, then you don't. If you do put it into KU, then you're looking at, having lost sales there. What does that mean with rank and visibility? And there's lots of factors, but as with anything, I think it's like test yourself and see how it goes.
I know from the ones that we've done, it hasn't affected KU sales.
That's awesome.
Because what you see is there's a population on your reader list that doesn't read KU.
KU, yeah. So
they're going to buy the book. And if you're not wide, but they don't like Amazon, there's just people that aren't Amazon fans, then it gives them a way to buy.
Yep.
And then there's those that will buy it just because they want to support you and they want you to get that money direct, right? Mm-hmm. It's like they would rather see you get it, and the margins are so much better.
Yeah. Now, Joe, do you find that that is a successful strategy with authors with a larger platform, that they don't have kind of those smaller platform margins to say, I can afford to do this, or is it kind of all across the board?
As far, I don't know if I understand the.
So if an author has a huge platform, and they're selling a ton of books versus an author that they just sell a few, or they're not as big, they don't have as big of a reader base. That strategy with those two different authors, does it seem to, in terms of hurting the rank and visibility and all that?
So I think it really gets back to something you were talking about earlier, and that is, what do you have the time for?
Yeah.
Right? So why do I think it's a beneficial strategy? Well, if you do this, and you don't have to do it on Facebook Messenger, you could do it in your email, right? You could just send out an email and use that same PayPal to BookFunnel trigger. You find out you now have a direct customer. Like you have somebody that you transacted with, they're your customer, and you have their data. It's in PayPal, but you have their data. That's a pain in the ass. That's like, you have to do stuff to make that happen. So if you want to start going to that point where you have a direct customer base, these are the things you have to do, right? The part of the value that Amazon delivers in the margin they take is a lot of the nuisance work that if you, God forbid you get really good at it and now you have to remit sales taxes to all these different, that's a high class problem.
Yeah.
Right? It isn't when you're thinking about it and having to fill out now I got to do sales tax in California. But if you get to the point where you cross that threshold, that means you have enough customers in California that you need to pay sales tax. So I think that that's probably the bigger thing for an author to think through is, am I prepared? Am I going to dedicate that as part of my business strategy that I'm going to get direct customers? As far as the rank piece, I think this again gets to a broader strategy of what you're doing to build your audience over time.
Over time,
You're
yeah.
never going to have the only thing that's going to give you like a massive blast where your book is going to take off and skyrocket is it's actually a really well-written book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A pithy ad really isn't going to do it. Some marketing gambit that you and I come up with isn't going to do it. When you see people that have that massive transformation in audience, it's because they found their voice and the book takes off.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of folks have used that as a reason not to do it. It's like, well, I'm not going to rank as well. It's like, well, if you're at the point where, and this I guess gets to the smaller audience, if you think that you're going to impact your rank that much by the audience you lose off of sales on a newsletter, then why is that? Is it your rank is so bad that 2 or 3 people is going to change it? Or is it the other side of it? That your rank is high and all of a sudden you shift a massive audience off of that platform. And I would argue then that's a good thing because now this significant Amazon audience is now your direct customer.
For yours,
so, yeah. Right?
So much value there, yeah.
Right. So like it's a big kind of interconnected thing that you have to think through for your specific situation. But if you think that your business is, 2 or 3 more people is going to be what gets that audience ranked to trigger something in the algorithm that's going to make you become a bestseller.
Yeah.
Not today. It isn't. Not anymore.
Yeah. And I do think the shops and then this integration that we're talking about, that could be the push for some people to kind of try out some of these different strategies.
Yeah, I think that, what you're doing and helping authors with kind of easing in this is pretty cool because not that it's for everybody, but for folks that want to do this, it is a way that could differentiate you and fit really well with your brand, right? So like in your case, how you've done it with characters, we were talking earlier, I think that's going to be the essence of marketing in the future is, I'm talking to somebody who's a huge Disney fan, right? Like, why do you go down and give them all your money?
Oh, just take it. Right? Take all the money. Yeah, that's a deep question. It really is. I had a course once where we talked about Disney in college. I remember that. And it's not a simple answer. It is a very psychologically based answer. I would surface say, I love Disney and it makes me happy, makes the kids happy, but I absolutely have a tie to the point where I have a spray in my car. I don't use it because I don't drive anymore, but I have a spray in my car that smells like the Polynesian. And I spray that and I feel like I'm in the Polynesian, like there's a deep, kind of connection there. Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it's a good tie-in.
Well, it's super powerful, right? Because, they've made such a huge business out of those memories and emotions and those psychological connections people have. And it's not just what you and I might have with a particular movie we saw or series that we're into, but now it's at the point where it's like we're having this other layer added and how we're having this family experience doing this stuff at the park with them experiencing their, like, it's like you go through it. I've talked about this before where it's like, there was a time, I was probably in my early 20s. I went back there. It had been a while since I've been there and I went through It's a Small World. Mm-hmm. And it was like sad because like I could actually see, it wasn't how I was recollecting it. The new experiences I was having was like, well, these are some kind of scabby old robots that need some work, right?
Because animatronics need some, painting.
Yeah, right. But that's all in my head. All that stuff is in my head. That conflict, that the memories, all that stuff. And as authors, to be able to do that, certainly we can't build a park, but we can use things like messenger bots to kind of blur the lines of reality. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
And
why
I
did,
know. Yeah. So go ahead.
well, no, finish your thought.
I know, I remember seeing an interview once and it talked about the difference, which one of the key differences between something like Universal, and they do this now too with the Harry Potter and all that, but back in the day, the difference between, Disney and other theme parks, and it was that every ride tells a story. Like that is where they start. So if Disney develops, and you said the big D word, so now you got me down a rabbit hole, but they develop a new ride, it starts with nothing to do with the ride itself. It's like, what is the story we're going to tell? And so I absolutely think that there's kind of correlation there between us. And I think a lot of times as marketers, we do tend to sell our books more than the story that they tell, which is our brand and the story that book tells. And that's really what we should be always selling. And that's why I love bots, because even as someone who knows, I shouldn't be saying, anytime I'm on Facebook saying, here's my book, buy it. And obviously I wouldn't say it like that, but anytime that's the message, I've misstepped. It really shouldn't be about that. And I know that, and still sometimes get caught up in I have this great teaser, I'm going to put it out, and then I'm going to put the buy link. I get caught up in that, but the bot doesn't allow me to do that because it's not me selling the book. It's Ian talking to the reader. So I always am kind of forced into reminding myself I'm telling a story. They're buying into that story and that connection with Ian. And that honestly is one of the things I love about messenger bots, because it kind of forces you into that fundamental what marketing should be.
Well, that's it. It's one of these things where we've kind of got the cart before the horse. We, as authors, if you go into a marketing place, they're trying to figure out what's the story that's going to sell whatever it is they're trying to sell. And because we've seen how powerful digital marketing techniques and funnel strategies can be, we think that's the end all be all, and it's not. It's actually, and I would argue is that people are getting a massive resistance to those things. There's just so much getting thrown out there. I mean, I'm constantly turning ads off in my streams.
Oh yeah, with the books, I mean, you see it over and over and over again. And differentiating yourself is a necessity, I would say, at this point. With the glut of books that are out there, you just have to do it somehow.
Yeah, it's 70,000 books a month they're saying is coming out.
And a lot of them are doing the Facebook ads like us. So yeah.
So we've kind of talked a lot about like the whys. How are you helping folks to not lose their minds getting messenger bots going?
Kind of like I did. And that this story kind of comes from me losing my mind. I have a business called iConnect with my partner, Bridget, who lives in New Orleans. And we've had this for 10 years. And we're an influencer marketing company where we help brands and bloggers connect and tell stories through influencers. So when she first started looking at bots for other brands, for other non-book brands, and kind of tried to talk me into it, I said, all right, I'll try it. But there definitely is a bit of a learning curve. And if you do it wrong, it just completely can fall flat. If you look at it like any other marketing tool and I'm just going to try to sell my book, it will fall flat. So I abandoned it pretty quickly and then picked it back up about a year ago when she saw it working so well with other brands. And she was actually running my bot for me for a little bit because of the learning curve. She was already doing it. And then eventually I had to take it over because it worked well. Readers loved talking to the characters. It was actually selling books, which was my thing. I said, I do not have time for something that isn't eventually going to convert. So once it did, I took it over. Other authors saw what we were doing and said, that's really cool. I want to do that. So we kind of folded it into our iConnect brand under Novel Bots, which we created just for this. And so Bridget is still running those bots for authors, but as an indie and as a former educator, I was like, there's a lot more, there's going to be authors that we won't be able to kind of fold in and do it for them. And they're indies. They're going to want to do this themselves eventually. So I kind of took my past experience as an educator, put together a course. So Novel Bots is now part kind of concierge done for you service where she's running bots for authors and our team is running bots for authors. And then my portion of it is the course. And then having a Facebook group with the course where I can answer questions and things like that. So authors can do it themselves and not hopefully have to. The information is out there. Like with any course, when you're looking at investing money, you have to really look at like who's teaching it, what is the content, can I get that? You can get this information obviously in other places. I did. So I used ManyChat. ManyChat has some great tutorials on YouTube. You can get those tutorials. You could Google like how to run a ManyChat bot. There's a lot of people out there with content. And you can piece that together and you could run a bot. I only put it together kind of in a package so that it's like, this is all of the things that I found, and I'm just giving it to you how we utilize messenger bots as authors, which is a little different than maybe say, you know, Pampers or Old Spice and how they do it, because we have those characters, right? And it's a kind of a natural thing to be able to do. So that's kind of how it came about. So Novel Bots is that two-pronged, like, done for you service, and then the course. And the course is just me telling people how I already have found it worked, and how other authors that we have now as clients have found that it's worked. And it's a lot of fun because it's a new channel. And I think I mentioned this to you before this started, the pen name. So I have a pen name. It's in a whole different subgenre. It is still romance, but I pen named it because I've learned from experience. I want to completely separate my also bots, historical, contemporary. So I'm starting from zero. I can't even share it with my family and friends like I did the first time, and let that grow. No one can know. So it's I forgot how hard it is to build from zero. And I definitely am using bots because I want them to get to know my character. And then rather than deciding, okay, do I put a lot of time and effort into the Facebook group? Do I really try to cultivate this newsletter list? Should I even have an Instagram account? Like, I'm not sure. I'm starting from nothing. And I'm using the bot because if they talk to the character can get them to all of those places. And so I'm kind of using that as like the kingpin of my strategy. So you talk to Enzo, who's the character. Enzo can get you to the email, you know, so I want to collect that too. He can get your text message number. He can take you to the Facebook group if you're the kind of person who likes to chat with the author in the Facebook group, or he can just get you to the, I just want, you know, the freebies where, you know, the extended excerpt comes out or different things. So I love that it's able to really kind of funnel them where they need to go. The reader needs to go. So that might have been more than you wanted, but there you go.
No, I think it's a really good point because it gets to the essence of meeting the readers where they're at.
Yeah.
Right. And understanding, okay, this is where they're at today. Not only like their preference for how they want to communicate, but maybe understand that they're not ready to dive into
an unknown author.
Yeah. I think that's the hard part for a lot of people that are selling stuff, especially when they're so in love with their product. Is like, well, no, you need to buy it now. It's like, no,
I don't want
to. But when I need that product, and this is more, you know, kind of other products and books because it's an entertainment function, but when I need it, you want to be top of mind and then to be fluently thinking, oh yeah, if I'm going to read historical romance, let's go get that book by Cecilia.
Yeah, you can really target your audience with the bot, you know, utilizing how their tagging system works, and it's really robust. And that's where I think it's overwhelming at first because there's so much and you want to try it all. You know, the bot can really put out a beautiful quiz where it quizzes you. And, you know, for my readers that are new to me, I used to have just funnel you to my website or wherever. Now the bot can say, well, do you like free things? Okay, then go here. Here's a free novella. Do you like time travel? Then go here. Do you like historical? Go here. Do you like paranormal? Go here. And that bot kind of does that. But that on the back end can get a little bit clunky at first if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So I think that, and for me at least, that was one of the barriers to getting it done. Yeah.
Well, you know, I use ManyChat too. And so while I would say out of the ones I've looked at, it's really intuitive and probably easy to use, it is so full featured.
It is.
Right? Like you could be using the wrong tool at the wrong time, or you could go like completely down a rabbit hole and forget that you're actually in the business of writing. Right?
I have gone down such a rabbit hole. I created a quiz that I think took like a week, and by the time I was done, what did I do? But I got so deep, and I wanted it to be so kind of, you know, targeting, user friendly, and I was like, let me try to use. I actually call it the everything but the kitchen sink flow at this point, and I gave it away in the course just recently because I'm like, somebody needs to do something with this. I put everything in here the tagging, the quiz capabilities, the SMS integration, the email integration, it's everything. I call it the kitchen sink flow, but yeah, I could have been writing. I also could have been writing.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. But if you can get up to speed with the right stuff,
yeah,
then the power that you have as an author is to write those stories in that format. I mean, you are limited in how many, words you can put in each little piece and whatnot, but you can have you can really start to get people introduced to you as an author and your voice through that tool, right? And you can see if they're interested, right? Because they're going to literally be on their phone hitting the next thing.
And it's almost like it's hard not to, hit that next bubble and interact and go back and forth. And speaking of voice, I had an author, I haven't done this yet, but we had an author who she grabbed her narrator, and because ManyChat has the capability of delivering an image, a video, an audio, text. So she grabbed her narrator and said, hey, I'm doing this thing where my character is talking to readers before the book comes out. Can you do a few voice messages where you're actually talking to the reader as the character? And she pulled that in. And I mean, to this day, it's great because the readers click it and they're hearing this character before the book is released. And I've thought about doing it. It's just, putting it on the list of things to do. And I know my narrator would be up for it, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But I thought it was brilliant.
Oh yeah, it is. Any of that stuff is going to be really helpful. And I think the other thing you made me think about is, so I was at a Facebook conference here in Chicago, and I was talking to somebody actually from Instagram, and trying to get an understanding of what authors might be able to do. And I was kind of sharing some of the things that authors struggle with. And we were all, people were having drinks, and they find this woman finally kind of said, like, hey, you understand, like, the average distance that an Instagram user thumbs up is the height of the Statue of Liberty each day. Your ability to get them off of these platforms is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And what you made me think about is, like, here's a way where, like, this person is kind of making a choice. They want to be on a device, kind of in this flow of, mindless digestion of content, right? Getting them to go and then move way over here to buy a book is so hard. Kind of stay where they're at, meeting them where they're at. And it's like, hey, we're just going to hang out and be mind numbing together, right? I'm going to tell you a little story. It's not going to be too hard, but what you're doing is you're building that relationship so that later on, when they are ready to buy a book, which you say was about 8 flows later, like
6, 8, something like that. I mean, you could really push it to 4, but I probably wouldn't, I mean, we do usually, and I'll just tell you, a typical kind of release flow would be like opt-in. Obviously they need to be there. And sometimes people do wonder about that as a kind of barrier too. These are annoying and I don't want these myself. So, I don't want to annoy readers. And, email was disruptive at one point too. And I get that, but you are never putting anyone in your messenger bot unless they want to be there. You're not tricking them into it. And if you do, you're doing it wrong. So if you go on Facebook and say, hey, click this button to talk to Ian. No, it's click this to talk to the character, subscribe to talk to the character. You're really explicit on what you're doing. When they come in, there's a unsubscribe on every single first flow. So that's really not an issue. I have less people unsubscribe from the bot than a newsletter. So, but I need to be clear on that because yes, and that's why Facebook changed their policies. People were using it incorrectly and spammy, and you don't want to do that. They want to be there, but once they want to be there, they opt in, get to know the character. So it's kind of called the opt-in, get to know the character bot. And then you're providing value. And we say, like, think about what you can give on here. Is it, chapter 1 before anyone else sees chapter 1? Is it the cover before anyone else sees the cover? But the next 3 or 4 flows are all just offering them something they couldn't get anywhere else. And even being there in some ways is getting something they can't get anywhere else. Because if you position this bot or the character to talk before the book comes out, you're getting into the character's mind before the book. You're getting into content that the character has in their head that you're relaying to the reader that they would have never gotten otherwise. So if you're clever about it, it could be the content itself. Like, so let me tell you what I'm thinking before in chapter 1 of the book, I fall through time, you know,
Yeah.
would have gotten that otherwise, that kind of stuff. But even so, it's giving value. And then maybe in the 6th flow, my story is out. Do you want to read it? And then that 7th flow, the one I'm sending tomorrow for Mayan, is really cool too, because it's a purchase reminder. So it's, you know, a few days later, hey, did you ever get to my story? If you did, maybe head over here, and if you liked it, and leave a review on Amazon Goodreads. You know, you can pop all those things in. No, you didn't get to it. Do you want a reminder in a week? You know, and you can set a reminder just in case. Like, I know things are a lot is going on. Do you want a reminder if you didn't get to my story? Do you want to unsubscribe? Do you want to, you read my story, you want to go to a new story, so you can kind of filter them to a lot of different places. And then the one big thing I want to mention there too is that last flow at this point should always have, there's a new thing Facebook Messenger came out with called a one-time notification. You're probably aware of that. It's like they call it an OTN. That's maybe 2 months old. In response to their March 4th update, where they made it a lot more difficult to get to subscribers anytime, Facebook said, okay, we get that after 24 hours, there might be uses outside of these 4 tags that you need to get to people, whether it's like a big sale in 2 months or something like that. So the one-time notification is a tag that, and you can have, one reader can have 5 tags, but it's a tag that if they opt into it, if they opt to be notified one time about that topic, you could send them a message anytime you want. It could be a week later, 3 weeks later, 2 months later, as long as they've opted into that. So now my purchase reminder bot, that last conversation is always, do you want to opt in to hear about whether it's the next book in the series, or, you know, the new series, or whatever it is, so you can kind of capture them. And you can have, like I said, one person can have a one-time notification on the new book, another one-time notification on a new series, another one-time notification on if I do a big giveaway. And that way you can get to people in lots of different ways. Because that is a kind of a problem right now with messenger bots. You can't just message anybody anytime you want. Some people call it another email marketing, another email list. It's not exactly, because my email list is mine. I can send an email anytime I want. Facebook Messenger, it's under these certain rules. So if I have, say, 1,000 subscribers, I might only have 500 subscribe to this flow for this character. So part of your strategy is always, how do I get those other 500 back into the flow, or how do I get them back into my new series flow, or things like that. And that I know is annoying to people, because they're like, listen, I did all that work to get those subscribers. I just want to message those subscribers whenever I want. Can't really do that under the new system. So.
Well, and the reason that they're doing that is they don't want to see that asset turn into garbage, right?
Yeah.
They're
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that, on the e-commerce side, you have a lot more flexibility, because we can do notifications related to your specific order.
Yes, you can. So you have tags available to you. The only tag that we really utilize is the event reminder. Event, exactly how it's called, but it's the event reminder. And we're using a book release as an event. There's a question. So there isn't a black and white, yes, you can use this tag when. So Facebook has guidance. When they took all of their, I think it was 20 tags, and they condensed it down to 4, and they said, here's these 4 tags. They gave you guidance as to, here are some of the examples and how you can use it. But there is no, yes, you can use it for this way, or you can use it for a book event. We're working with a woman who, she does, I don't know if you know Mari Smith from Facebook. She does her bots.
Yeah.
She actually is one of the co-moderators of the ManyChat Facebook community. So she's as tuned into anyone as terms of the rules and Facebook. And we've gotten on a call with her and said, hey, this is how we want to use it. What do you think? And she said, listen, I think it's fine. And it goes with, the bottom line is Facebook doesn't want people to spam. They don't want people to not want to be there. And, the way you're using it is great, but you understand, and I want our readers to understand, and our clients do understand, this is still our interpretation of it. Like Facebook could come at some point and say, the event reminder tag's not for that. And we have to be prepared for that. We have to know that, and I've tried to get them to say, yes, you can use it for this reason. And then they basically said, we cannot give every scenario, because then we're opening up a can of worms for everyone to use it. That's a long way to say we do use one of those 4 tags. So I will message someone within, say, a 6 flow book release. I'll message them 6 times as long as they've opted into that first one. The book release event, I'm using the event tag to say, and I'm pretty explicit. Are you interested in getting Ian's, I forget exactly how I word it, but book release on, May 15th, and conversations between now and then. And again, it's not worded that way, but you're basically saying you're going to get messages about the event, which is the book release on May 15th, that kind of lead up to that, and they subscribe into that. And so we're okay and comfortable with that. If you're not, then you can't use the event tag. Then you have to get people into that first 24 hours, pull them back in with an email, pull them back in with an SMS, collect that one-time notification tag, use the one-time notification tag to open up the 24-hour window. So there's a lot of But yeah, you have, I think, some additional tags that I've never even looked at those other 3. I know they don't apply.
Yeah. When I first heard about this whole thing, I was at the Converted conference up in Minneapolis, and it was one of these things where it was just starting to happen, and all these e-commerce guys were just losing their mind.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
These were guys that were doing. One of the guys, have you either know or heard of Ezra Firestone?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was there where he was just initially talking about like, hey, this is what we're doing now. Like he was literally showing stuff off of his phone that how they were, and his business is probably 10x'd.
Yeah.
Because he does everything with, Shopify, Facebook, and does all his customer service through Messenger.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the vision someday for an author, right? That's
for
maybe
sure.
Why that, they're running their business there.
That'd be
now,
really cool.
the caveat is it's now you're on somebody else's platform again, right?
Yep. That's why we're going to collect those emails and those messages. I have in my first flow now, some people will say wait till 2 or 3. I collect it right in the beginning because I'm always offering something. So I feel like if I'm giving you something, a cover reveal before it's out or a chapter before it's out or something like that, I'm kind of okay with, before I hand that over, are you interested in getting a text? So, you have the opt-in language, but that first opt-in flow, I actually do at the end of the flow, have an option for email and SMS first flow. And then that way I know then I can have them and use them and, they're not just Facebooks anymore.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Well, why don't you, before we kind of wrap up here, why don't you tell folks about like where they can find this course, and if the folks that may be interested in the concierge service, if they're still taking clients, how they can maybe do that.
Yeah, so it's just www.novel-bots.com. So we got a little dash in the middle there, but we have a Facebook page. We have a Facebook group for clients and course students. But if you go to novel-bots.com, it will kind of funnel you into that. We have a kind of 4-day chatbot challenge right now going on. It's like 15 minutes a day for 4 days. And it really will get your feet wet, will get you up and running, whether you want to continue with it or not. And so that's kind of fun. We just took some of the videos, the popular videos from the course, and kind of pulled them into a 4-day, 15-minute thing. Because a lot of people will say, I don't really know chatbot. Like, I don't know what we're talking about here. I don't know how it works, whether I'd want to use it or not. Or so this challenge really shows you, like, here's what it would look like and feel like if you were chatting with the character. Here's some of the getting started stuff. So, but that's all on the website. So if anyone is interested now or even in the future, because I know as an author, you have limited bandwidth, and I think it's a great time to get in because it is kind of early adopter still when you look at how many people are on Messenger versus, actual Facebook feed and news feed and things. But I think it's still early enough that people are kind of a little hesitant on it. So whether it's now or in the future, happy to answer questions about it as well.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for coming on and sharing all this. And we'll keep talking because I think there's some pretty cool stuff that's coming along the line, not just with messenger bots, but this whole Facebook Shops thing is going to really change options for authors.
I think so too. I was excited about it, and I was glad you were too. I wasn't alone in my so that was fun. You're like, what do you think about this? I'm like, I think it's great.
Yeah. No, I was,
thanks for having me, Joe.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right. Talk to you later, Cecilia.
All right. See ya. Have a good one.